The beaches along the North American coastline between Western Canada and Washington State are stunningly beautiful. There, beachcombers can find shells, driftwood, beach glass, and sometimes pieces of pottery. But in 2007, people started coming across something much more disturbing: severed human feet. Now dubbed the Salish Sea feet. Where did these gruesome objects come from? In today's episode, we will look into the mysterious phenomenon known as the Salish Sea feet. For years, the answer to the so-called severed foot case has stumped investigators. As theories about serial killers and human traffickers ran rampant online, they sought to identify who the feet belonged to and to determine how they ended up on beaches. Was this the work of a serial killer, or was something less sinister at play? The mystery of the Salish Sea feet. On August 20th, 2007, a 12-year-old girl walking along the beach in British Columbia, Canada, came across a blue and white running shoe. The shoe, a men's size 12, was not just a washed-up piece of trash. Upon closer inspection, the girl discovered that it also contained a human foot. This was the first of the Salish Sea feet. This foot was quickly followed by others. Less than a week later, a second foot appeared on nearby Jedediah Island. Police were stunned, especially since both feet were right feet and wearing different shoes, meaning that they didn't belong to the same person. Two being found in such a short period of time is quite suspicious. Gary Cox of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police remarked to the Vancouver Sun, "Finding one foot is like 1,000,000 to 1 odds, but to find two is crazy. I've heard of dancers with two left feet, but come on." Since then, more than 20 feet have been found around the Salish Sea, both in British Columbia and further south in the Puget Sound. As National Geographic reports, almost all of the Salish Sea feet were wearing tennis shoes, though some people also found feet wearing hiking boots. As more and more feet washed ashore, many in the Salish Sea region and beyond started asking the same question: where did these feet come from? So where did all the severed human feet in the Pacific Northwest come from? As feet washed up on beaches between Washington State and British Columbia, theories about their origin proliferated. Some speculated that the feet belonged to victims of a shadowy serial killer. Others suggested that they came from drowned migrants. One theory in the severed foot case suggested that they came from a plane crash. Residents of the region grew steadily more concerned as the number of feet washing up on the beach continued to grow. Rumors of a serial killer actively stalking in the region began to circulate. Concerned citizens began combing the beaches for more feet and to look for possible clues. To solve the mystery of the Salish Sea feet, researchers sought to understand the behavior of cadavers underwater and the behavior of the Salish Sea itself. In their research, they experimented with pig carcasses as a stand-in for human cadavers. As National Geographic reports, bodies usually sink, especially if they belonged to someone who drowned. Once they hit the sea floor, forensic scientist Gail Anderson of Simon Fraser University found cadavers are quickly devoured by sea life like lobsters and crabs. Arthropods will skeletonize and disarticulate a body quite quickly depending on oceanic conditions, Anderson told National Geographic. This means that feet are quickly separated from the rest of the body. With the way modern sneakers are constructed, they are more likely to float than not. From there, oceanography professor Parker McCready of the University of Washington found that the Salish Sea provides the perfect conditions to push the disarticulated feet toward shore. Things that float at the ocean surface move with the currents, but also are pushed a bit by the wind, and this can be significant in getting them to shore. McCready explained to National Geographic, "The prevailing winds here around the Salish Sea are west to east, and so floating stuff in this part of the Pacific gets blown to the coast effectively. Researchers also found that tennis shoes played an important role in the mystery of the Salish Sea feet. The way tennis shoes are constructed today, they are more likely to float. Thus, disarticulated feet in tennis shoes are more likely to wash up on a beach. Feet easily disarticulate, and when they are attached to a flotation device such as a running shoe, they are easily washed ashore, Anderson told Vox. Notice there are no feet washing ashore in stiletto heels or flip-flops. Also, today's running shoes are much more buoyant than in the past. Given the behavior of cadavers underwater, the currents of the Salish Sea, and the buoyancy of today's tennis shoes, investigators believe that the puzzle of the Salish Sea feet has a perfectly logical solution. The tragic solution to the Salish Sea severed feet case. The final piece of the severed feet mystery has to do with the disarticulated feet themselves. Who did they once belong to? As National Geographic reports, investigators were able to use DNA to match many of the feet to a name. They found that most belonged to reported missing persons. The vast majority had been missing for more than a year. One of the feet found belonged to a fisherman missing since 1987. In many cases, it was clear that the missing people had died from accidents or suicides, including a woman who jumped from a bridge. We found there is nothing suspicious in any of them. British Columbia Coroner's Service spokeswoman Barb McClintock told NBC News, "It appears that the feet become disarticulated from the body naturally with time, as the bodies decompose and are eaten by sea life or other marine organisms." McClintock further explained, "The material in the running shoes or hiking boots is too tough for anything to eat through, and some of them have air in them or rubber soles that cause them to float." In other words, the story of the Salish Sea feet is a simple, albeit a tragic one. Investigators believe that people who died by accident or suicide ended up in the water, where arthropods naturally disarticulated their feet. Modern-day tennis shoes made of buoyant material floated to the surface, where the currents of the Salish Sea pushed them to shore. Though feet may continue to appear along the coasts of places like Vancouver and Seattle, it appears that there is no cause for alarm. The Salish Sea feet are not the work of a serial killer, but of crabs and lobsters. This concludes today's episode of the Paranormal Report. If you enjoyed today's episode, please give us a thumbs up and consider subscribing to our channel. It is your continued viewership and support that enables us to bring you interesting and informative videos like this. The team here at the Paranormal Report really appreciates your support.